Hi, friends, and welcome to another episode of Bite Size Bish. Today, I'm going to be addressing what everybody wants to know, which is what do I think about Tamra's recent announcement? So, if you have not heard what happened, maybe you were on vacation on Mars. I'm not sure. I'm just kidding. I'm not trying to shame anyone. But my point is that this was everywhere. So, Tamra announced on Two Teas in a Pod that after a therapy session, she was diagnosed with being on the spectrum of autism spectrum disorder. And she talked about that, and a lot of people had a lot of reactions. And so, due to the nature of what I do, I reposted it in an effort to advocate for the ASD community and to share some clinical insights. That's literally what I do. And the thing is that you all, at this point, you all know me. You're my people. But sometimes on social media, people are determined to misunderstand me or make me a villain or project stuff onto me. And, it's not fair because that's just not who I am, but that's just a part of what goes along with what it is that I'm doing. And I have to accept that. And that's just how it is. So after I posted what I posted, which to be clear, I'm not going to repeat it, but I reposted it and Tamra contacted me. And after some discussion, I decided to remove the post in an effort to respect her mental health journey. My only goal of commenting on it was to advocate for what I felt was misinformation about the ASD spectrum, and to advocate for folks on the spectrum and to provide psychoeducation about ASD and neurodivergence and neurodiversity, because autism spectrum disorder is under the umbrella of neurodivergence, but it's very complex. And so today's bite-sized Bish, I'm just explaining what happened. I'm giving you all the information. I'm here to let you all know that I am okay. I just wanted to explain what was kind of happening. And so after I took down the post, what happened was I was tagged, reposted, talked about by every content creator on the planet. And I never know what to do with that because I'm like, me? Little old me? Why? How have I become the center of this controversy? Because people were kind of speculating about, well, why she deleted it and this and that. And well, you talked to Tamra, but what she's, all these things. So here's, you guys know me well. And what I will say is that my moral compass and how I treat people is all I control. All I can control, I should say. So although what I said wasn't inappropriate, I did not talk about her diagnosis. I didn't say that it wasn't I didn't do any of that, but I also never want to be somebody who hurts anyone. And so although the entire internet was talking about it, I can only control me and how I think, feel, react. And, I am the type of person that I give respect to people. It's not based on whether they deserve it. It's based on my moral compass. And that's just who I am. So I'm not going to be speaking about Tamra directly, pretty much from here on out, if I'm being honest. To be clear, she's not my client. No one but Tamra and her provider, whoever that is, knows what's occurring. And I am going to do a podcast to share actual clinical knowledge, facts, statistics, research studies, information about the autism spectrum and other neurodivergent disorders, to help advocates or to advocate for this community. That is literally my only goal of what I'm doing here. Well, my other goal is to have fun and, all that other stuff. But, I never want to be somebody who makes someone feel bad. I just don't. So I just wish everyone managing their mental health journey love and support. And I have to say that, I've talked about on this podcast before how we create, unhealthy dynamics as we grow. And, sometimes in employment situations, people find that. And so what I have to acknowledge is that my stuff, my childhood stuff, is very triggered in this space because, I am someone who is not doing anything wrong. I'm actually trying to be a good human and a good citizen and an educator and a compassionate individual. But unfortunately, not everyone is going to see that. And, I've been subject to a lot of criticism and flat out hate in, the last year. But what I will say is that the way this community has rallied around me, so, listeners, content creators, friends, if I knew how to cry happy tears, I would. And I know that's not really funny, but complex trauma survivors get it. I have felt so loved and supported in the last 48 hours. I mean, I've also felt a lot of stress and anxiety. And, I'm never going to be comfortable with being talked about online. And honestly, if I ever thought there was a chance of that happening, I'm not sure if I would have done this, to be honest. But, you know, my commitment number one is don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. Number two, I did talk about this all in therapy. Um, I am not going to share specifics of that, but if you would have told me that this would have been the topic of therapy, I would have told you that you were on drugs. And I also will not be sharing the contents of the DMs, and I'm not going to disparage Tamra or talk about, any of that. Again, just because that's not what I do. And let me be clear that there are many Bravo Labs that are lucky that I have the moral compass that I have. And that isn't a threat. It's not blackmail, because that's not what I do. It's just a point that people listening to this and on my social media have no idea the things that I've experienced behind the scenes that I cannot discuss because there's just a million reasons. And also, that's not what I do and that's not what I'm about. But like, I am a sensitive person and sometimes it does feel like too much. And I also am like, this is above my pay grade. Like, I'm not getting paid nearly enough to be the center of some sort of controversy with Tamra. Like, I should be getting paid so much more than that. So listen, I just want to say thank you for those of you who have supported me. And those of you who disagree with me, I understand and respect that too. There are some folks, it's not a lot. I would say 99% of people understood what I was trying to do and supported me. And then there were some people on the ASD spectrum that felt that it was not appropriate. And so what I'll say to that is everyone has the right to that opinion. I believe the experts on neurodivergence are the people who live with it, the patients, the caregivers. And yes, qualified doctors do need to, be able to assess it. And I'm going to talk about that in my bigger podcast about this next week. But, it's just, I always want to be honest and open with you all as much as is appropriate and safe for me. So I guess I just want to thank you all for having my back. I that's a foreign concept for me. Is normally when something like would happen, and I was told it was my fault and it wasn't, and blah blah blah. And so to have something happen and to have people truly have my back and love me and support me, I quite frankly, I don't even really know how to process that. Which is some of what I talked about in therapy with my own Bish therapist. Sometimes I don't know how to process love and good stuff, and which is sad, but also it's amazing because it gives me the opportunity to do that. So I guess what I'm saying is that this job, this content creator, podcaster, whatever the heck you want to call me, because I don't want to call myself anything other than Melissa or Bish. But it has opened my eyes to blind spots and brought up things in ways that, while painful, have helped me make progress out of my pain. And so for that, I'm eternally grateful. If this blows up tomorrow, what I've learned and gained for myself is invaluable. And I am just over the moon about that. Also, another thing that I'll say quick is that this week I got hit by a car in my neighborhood, and that was literally the least of my concerns. First of all, I'm okay. But it's like my husband and I were laughing about how, like, sometimes days of my life are so wild that it's like we forget about huge things that any other person, it would like it crush them. But for me, it's just like another Wednesday in my life. So the long and the short of it is I live in a neighborhood where how do I say this? So I live in kind of like a rural area, not progressive at all, very behind the times, lots of entitlement, lots of ignorance. Not all people. Some people here are lovely. We have one set of wonderful neighbors, but outside of that, that's kind of it. But people here really, my point is, like, in the neighborhood I live in, we live in the old part of the neighborhood. However, it's being developed so much that there's waves behind us where the houses are 500,000, 750,000, and $1 million plus. Okay. So the point is that this lovely neighborhood has shifted and it's changed. And I was walking, in where I live in Pennsylvania, to be clear, we don't do sidewalks. I grew up in a suburb of Chicago and there were sidewalks everywhere and it's a friendly walking community. And in other countries and other places, you're going to hear this and be like, what the actual fuck? But I'm just trying to give the context to explain how backwards where I live is. Okay. So there's no sidewalks here. And if you walk on someone's property, you risk getting shot. I'm not joking. People here that's those kind of people. Okay. And so I was walking by as close to the curb as I could on the street. It's been a beautiful fall here. The fall foliage is literally giving me life. It's gorgeous. It's lovely. And it's, for me, one of the very few benefits of living where I live. So I take it in every day that it's here. And it makes me grateful to be alive. And so I was doing that. And on the side of the road, there was a mobile dog grooming station parked, because like people in my neighborhood, some of them just like have so much money that they pay like a mobile, like a trailer, to come park outside their house and groom their pet. And I was walking around it, which what is a truck like that? I don't know, 10 feet, whatever, people in other countries, I'm sorry, I can't convert that for you because this is not my area of knowledge. But my point is, it was a very short period of time. So I walk around the truck and all of a sudden I feel a pull on my sweatshirt, and I look to my right and a car has caught on the pocket of my sweatshirt. The driver's side mirror got so close to me that it caught on my sweatshirt, and I was so startled. And the car she hit me, and I wasn't injured, but like it pulled my sweatshirt, and I was so startled that I was just like, oh I screamed, and I had headphones in too, and I just like completely, my nervous system just like immediately went on fire, and then she drove away. Right. Okay. So this is only part one of the horribleness of where I live. So I did flip her the double birds because I was so mad. And if I could run, I would have run after her. But this body, you would have found me deceased in the middle of the street. So I was like, I'm not going to do that. So, and by the way, somebody else saw it. A neighbor in my neighborhood who was driving stopped. They asked if I was okay. And they were like, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, this is every day. is a wonder in my life. So I'm continuing on my walk, and you are all not going to believe that, yes, I did run into said woman who hit me with her car and drove away. And here's where sweet, kind Bish kind of takes a nap, because I was pissed and I had every reason to be. So I walked right up to her and I said, hi, you hit me with your car and drove away. And this woman has the nerve to start screaming at me, cursing at me, and saying that it was my fault because I was in the road. Oh my God, it gets so much worse. So then I realized that I'm dealing with a psycho. And, I'm going to be honest, I did have some choice words for her because she deserved it. And sometimes, I say be kind, but take no shit. And I was certainly not taking her bag of bullshit. So I just said, you know what? I'm going to call 911. I'm going to have cops come and I'm going to let this play out. And as soon as I did that, she took the car and parked it inside her garage, and they ran inside the house and locked, well, I assume locked the door. But anyway, so I call 911, and where I live, there's Pennsylvania State Police, and then there's local cops. And where I live, calling 911 to my neighborhood is local cops, not Pennsylvania State Police. And the reason I'm saying this is because I think if it had been, I would have had a different outcome. However, whatever. So this officer pulls up, and I explain what happened. And he said, well, technically the roadway is for cars. And I just thought, and here's the thing, I'm smart enough to understand that I'm being gaslit by system after system after system in my life. And this is just another example of that. And so the rage I felt was wild, but I also am smart enough to know that I need to be respectful when talking to a police officer, even if that police officer is terrible. And let me be clear, I support police officers. They're good and bad actors in all scenarios. And I've dealt with some amazing police officers in my career, and this was not one of them. So technically, I'm not supposed to be on the roadway, and technically, the roadway is for cars only, and, blah, blah, blah. And so I just realized that I was going to get nowhere here, and he was making me to be the crazy person. And so what I just respectfully said to him was, well, it doesn't matter if the road is just for cars. Hitting your neighbor with your car and driving away, I assume, is not okay. Also, the alternative is walking on people's property, which I'm assuming is also not okay. So I'm either being told not to walk or just to suck it up if someone hits me and drives away. And he did not like that at all. So he promptly just dismissed me. I walked home, by the way, because I wasn't hurt, right? It grabbed my sweatshirt. It didn't hit me. So thankfully I wasn't hurt, but I was made to walk home. They did not offer me a ride. And as I was walking home, he drove right by me and did not even acknowledge my existence. So my point, and so that was one day. And then I had my appointment with my oncologist, which, by the way, I did post an update about this. Everything is fine. My numbers did go up slightly, but chronic cancer is a long game. There's no changes we're making. I can't stop the meds. I'm not taking new ones. We just have to stay the course, which it could work for a week, a month, 5 years. You just don't know. And then when it's time to do something different, I'll have to do something different. And until then, I'm not going to worry about CLL. But the reason why I bring this up, so it's like, okay, so I was grazed by a car, told that was my fault. Then I had appointment with my oncologist, which was extremely anxiety provoking. Because just to remind you all, this time I did not look at my blood counts for the first time ever, which sometimes doing what's best for us can create an insane amount of anxiety. So I just wanted to validate that, like, I did have an insane amount of anxiety. And so if you're someone who's listening to this and is like, well, I want to do this, well, you have to get comfy with severe anxiety, because I was so anxious that when they took my my blood pressure and God, what do they call that? Your blood oxygen level, when they put that little thing on your finger. it was like 93, which is like, you should be in the hospital. That's not good. And so he said, okay, take some deep breaths. And so I did. My point is that I'm emotionally intelligent. I'm a therapist. But when you're triggered by trauma, you have blind spots and it's okay and necessary to need help. I, the therapist who has taught breathing, taught meditation, forgot to breathe. Okay. So if you're in a situation and you're like hard on yourself, remember these words. Just remember them. Okay. It's okay. We're doing the best that we can. So I'm not going to think about CLL or blood cancer or blood counts for the next 3 months until my next appointment, and then repeat until it is time for me to pay attention and have to worry about something. But for now, it was a practice in acting opposite that I absolutely hated, but I did it. And at the end of the day, it was good for me because my numbers did increase a little and I would have stressed out about that all week. And at the end of the day with CLL, it's not one number. It's a very complex disease and diagnosis, and it requires a complex person to interpret that. So, but again, so to circle back, my point is that this week I was hit by a car, told that it didn't matter, had an appointment with my oncologist to deal with a chronic cancer that is never going away, and was in the center of housewives drama. That has been my week. So, this is going to be it for me today. I just really wanted to be able to hop on, talk to you all, share my experience, strength, and hope, and share my anger and my frustration and all of that. But anyway, I am fine. Everything's fine. I am resilient as hell. My fellow content creators were like, how are you doing this? And I'm like, I'm just made of tough stuff. I am, because I've had to be. And in situations like this, it's incredibly helpful because despite the fact that all that has gone on, I've still had to function. I've still had to grocery shop and, do my podcast and do work. I just went on another podcast today and, clean my house and all these things. And so my point is, if you're struggling, you're not alone. It's okay. I'm okay. We'll be okay. We just have to, have our back. And all I can suggest is taking what comes as it comes. And, that's how I'm dealing with all of this. So for today, I'm going to say thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. Thank you for understanding me. Thank you for your genuine nature, support, and all of that. If you really are wondering, it does make a huge difference to me and it means the world. And so I just thank you all. I will continue to serve Bish. I will continue to post. I will continue to talk, just not about Tamra. And if you're wondering how, well, TBD, because I'm not sure I know, but guess what? We're going to figure it out. We're going to pivot and figure it out. So thank you all so much for listening. Please, Your Bish Therapist on social media. Follow that. Please follow the podcast. And next week, you can expect an episode about neurodiversity, neurodivergence, autism spectrum disorder. And I also will be releasing an episode with my friend Kristen about Mormonism and converting and what that means to her. And let me be clear about something before I end, is that I don't know what it is to have neurodivergence, ASD, any of that. I do know what it is to have chronic mental health conditions, which, technically, so depression, anxiety technically falls under neurodivergence. But my point is that the people who are experiencing this are the experts. And so my point is, when I talk about it, I'm talking about it from a clinical perspective. I am trying to get someone on the podcast who either lives with autism or raises a child as a caretaker. And so I'm working on that because I want to give everyone a balanced view. It's not just about me. It's about the people who live this. And so the same thing with my friend Kristen. She converted to Mormonism. She didn't grow up with it. And so because she didn't grow up with it, there are some of those pieces of religious trauma that are different than in people who grew up with it. So I just want to note that. It doesn't make her experience less valid or less important. I want people to understand that I'm trying to get as much diversity on the show as possible so we can hear different viewpoints from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So end of that. Thank you all for listening. Please remember to take care of yourselves and each other, and ta-ta for now. Disclaimer. Posts are not intended to diagnose, treat, or provide medical advice. Your Bish therapist is for entertainment and informational purposes only. The podcast, my opinions, and posts are my own and not associated with past or present employers, any organizations, Bravo TV, Greyheart Productions, or any other television network. The information in YBT podcast and on its social media is provided for general informational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat. Please do not act or refrain from acting based on anything you read, see, or hear on YBT podcast or associated social media. Communicating with YBT via email and or social media does not form a therapeutic alliance. Melissa, operator of YBT, is unable to provide any therapeutic advice, treatment, or feedback.